Have you ever wondered how the world got so connected? Why we can eat spices from Asia or chocolate from the Americas? It all started with a craving for flavor, for wealth, and for adventure. In the 1400s, Europe was buzzing with a desire for goods from Asia, things like silk, perfume, and most importantly, spices like pepper and cinnamon. These weren't just for making food taste good, they were used as medicine and to preserve food before refrigerators existed. They were so valuable, they were worth their weight in gold. The problem? The land route to Asia, the famous Silk Road, was long, dangerous, and controlled by merchants who charged incredibly high prices. So the countries of Europe began to dream of a different way, a sea route. The nation of Portugal took the lead, thanks in large part to one man, Prince Henry the Navigator. Now, Henry wasn't a sailor himself, but he was a great sponsor of exploration. Around 1418, he started a school for navigation, bringing together the best map makers, shipbuilders, and sailors in the world. They developed new technologies, like a faster, more agile ship called the Caravel, perfect for long voyages. Thanks to Prince Henry's vision, Portuguese sailors bravely pushed farther and farther down the coast of Africa, eventually rounding the tip and finding the sea route to Asia. Portugal became a naval and trading powerhouse, controlling this rich trade and leaving its rivals like Spain in the dust. This left their neighbor Spain feeling a little jealous. They needed their own route. That's when an Italian sailor named Christopher Columbus showed up with a radical idea. He told the Spanish king and queen, "Why go east around Africa? The world is round. Let's sail west across the Atlantic Ocean. It will be a shortcut to Asia." In 1492, Spain funded his voyage. Columbus sailed west, and well, he didn't find Asia. He bumped into a whole new world, the Americas. This accidental discovery changed the world forever. And this is also where the name Indian comes from. Columbus's goal was to reach the East Indies, the islands of South and Southeast Asia. When he landed in the Americas, he was so sure he had succeeded that he called the native people he met Indios, which is Spanish for Indians. The name, born from a geographical mistake, stuck. Even though he was on the wrong side of the world, the name was used by Europeans for all the native peoples of the Americas from that day forward. As for Columbus, he made 3 more voyages to the Americas, always seeking riches and a path to Asia. He was made governor of the new Spanish colonies, but was a harsh and ineffective leader. Colonists complained so much that he was eventually arrested and sent back to Spain in chains. Though he was later set free, he lost his titles and prestige. Columbus died in 1506, still wealthy, but a bitter and disappointed man who to his dying day refused to believe he had found a new continent. He had no idea how truly world-changing his mistake had been. His discovery, however, kicked off a massive race among European nations to explore, claim, and get rich from these new lands. Their motivations were simple and are often called the 3 Gs: gold, God, and glory. Gold, finding treasure, metals, and anything else of value. God, to spread the Christian faith to the native people. And glory, to become famous, claim new lands for their king and country, and become powerful. This race for gold, God, and glory is what brings our story to Texas. After Columbus, Spain began conquering vast empires in the Americas. In 1519, a conquistador named Hernan Cortez landed in what is now Mexico. He wasn't in Texas, but his story is the spark that lights the fire. Cortez and his soldiers marched inland and conquered the mighty Aztec Empire, discovering incredible amounts of gold and silver. Suddenly, the Spanish believed the New World was filled with treasure, just waiting to be found. This inspired other explorers to search the lands to the north, lands that would one day be called Texas. As for Cortez, after his conquest, he became the powerful and incredibly wealthy governor of New Spain. However, his life was filled with legal battles and political enemies. He eventually returned to Spain, where he fell out of royal favor and died in 1547, a rich but bitter man, far from the empire he had conquered. The very same year Cortez was marching on the Aztecs, another Spaniard was busy at sea. Alonso Alvarez de Pineda was on a mission. His motivation wasn't just gold. He was looking for a water passage to the Pacific Ocean, a shortcut that would finally lead to Asia. He sailed along the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, from Florida all the way down to Mexico. While he didn't find a path to the Pacific, he accomplished something huge. Pineda and his crew were the first Europeans to ever see the Texas coast. His most important accomplishment was creating the first map of the Gulf coastline. For the first time, Spain had a picture of this new territory, even if they didn't know what was in it. But Pineda's glory was short-lived. A year later, in 1520, he returned to the coast of Mexico to start a settlement. There, he and most of his men were attacked and killed by local Huastec Indians. The man who first mapped Texas met a violent end on the very shores he had put on the map. The first European to actually walk through Texas arrived by accident and disaster. In 1528, Alvar Nuñez Cabeza de Vaca was part of a large Spanish expedition that shipwrecked off the Texas coast, likely near modern-day Galveston Island during a hurricane. His motivation quickly changed from exploration to survival. Of the hundreds of men who started the expedition, only Cabeza de Vaca and a few others survived. For 8 years, he wandered across Texas and northern Mexico. He lived among several Native American tribes like the Karankawa and the Coahuiltecans. To survive, he worked as a servant, a trader, and even gained a reputation as a medicine man or healer. His journey was a failure in terms of finding gold, but his accomplishments were incredible. He was the first European to explore the interior of Texas and document its geography, plants, animals, and people. When he finally made it back to a Spanish city in Mexico in 1536, he told amazing stories. He spoke of vast lands and hinted at rumors he'd heard from natives about massive cities rich with gold far to the north. These stories electrified the Spanish and sparked the next great search. After his ordeal, Cabeza de Vaca returned to Spain as a hero. He wrote a famous book about his adventure, but his later life was difficult. He was made governor of a Spanish colony in South America, but other colonists revolted against his fair treatment of Native Americans. He was arrested, sent back to Spain in chains, and lived the rest of his life in poverty before his death around 1558. Cabeza de Vaca's rumors of golden cities were all the motivation Francisco Vasquez de Coronado needed. In 1540, he led a massive and expensive expedition with over 1,000 men and countless animals north from Mexico in search of the legendary Seven Cities of Cibola. He marched through present-day Arizona and New Mexico. He found the Golden Cities, but they were a huge disappointment. They were just Zuni Pueblo villages built of adobe mud shining in the sun. No gold. A Native American guide the Spanish called the Turk, then told Coronado of another mythical land called Quivira. Coronado followed him, marching right through the Texas Panhandle. He was amazed by the landscape, describing it as a sea of grass, and was one of the first Europeans to see the massive herds of buffalo. His route took him all the way into modern-day Kansas, but when he found Quivira, it was just a simple village of the Wichita people. Realizing he had been tricked, Coronado had the Turk executed and returned to Mexico in 1542, a failure in his own eyes. Coronado's expedition was a financial ruin. He returned to Mexico in disgrace and had to face a legal inquiry into his leadership. Though he was cleared of charges, his reputation was shattered. He died in 1554 in Mexico City, a man whose quest for golden cities left him with nothing but debt and disappointment. Spain may have lost interest, but another country had its eyes on North America: France. Enter René Robert Cavelier Sieur de La Salle. His motivation was to build a French empire in the heart of America. In 1682, he led an expedition down the entire Mississippi River and claimed the vast territory drained by the river for France, naming it Louisiana in honor of his king. Then he made a fatal mistake. In 1684, he tried to return from France by sea to build a colony at the mouth of the Mississippi River. But navigation was poor, and he missed his target by 400 miles, landing instead at Matagorda Bay, Texas. He established a small settlement called Fort St. Louis, but it was a complete disaster. Shipwrecks, disease, and attacks from local Karankawa Indians doomed the colony. In 1687, a desperate La Salle was murdered by his own men while trying to march overland for help. The fort was destroyed. His grand dream of a French empire on the Gulf Coast died with him in the Texas wilderness. La Salle's expedition was a failure for France, but its impact on Texas was enormous. When the Spanish heard there was a French fort in their territory, they panicked. La Salle's failed colony suddenly made Texas seem incredibly important. Spain realized if they didn't occupy Texas, the French would take it. La Salle's little fort changed everything. Spain's disinterest in Texas vanished overnight. Their new motivation was to keep the French out and secure their claim on the land for good. This sparked a new era. Instead of just sending explorers, Spain decided to settle Texas. They began building a chain of religious outposts called missions, and to protect these missions, they built military forts called presidios. The mission and the presidio were the 1-2 punch of Spanish settlement. The mission, run by priests, was designed to convert Native Americans to Catholicism and teach them the Spanish way of life. The presidio, filled with soldiers, was built nearby to protect the mission from attacks by hostile natives and to help the priests control the mission population. The goals of this mission presidio system were to convert Native Americans to the Catholic faith, teach them the Spanish language and the way of life, turning them into loyal Spanish subjects, and most importantly, establish a permanent Spanish presence in Texas to block any future French or other foreign threats. The age of exploration was over, but the stories, the failures, and the accidental discoveries of these first explorers, from Pineda's first map to La Salle's disastrous fort, directly paved the way for the missions, the settlements, and the rich, complex history of Spanish Texas.